So yes, my name is Alex Hunter, and as you may have heard, I did spend quite a long time in and around the Virgin Group. First as part of the team that founded Virgin America, the airline in the US, and then in London, running the digital strategy for all 300 plus Virgin businesses around the world. But I did get a sign, well, maybe you've experienced this too at some point in your career. I got a very clear sign from the universe that it was time to move on. I was at a conference, actually quite similar to this, years ago, and throughout the day, every single person that I spoke to gave me a weird look. Every single person. After a few hours of this, I was like, what the hell is going on? Do I have something in my teeth? Are my flies undone? What's going on? I went back to my hotel room later that evening, took off my conference badge, and that's when I saw it. It just said, Alex Hunter, brackets, Virgin. And I was like, maybe it's time for me to craft my own identity in this universe. So that's what I do. I spend my time working with organizations all over the world, helping them figure out how they can stand out, how they can elevate themselves above the crowd, stand out in all of that noise that we create day in and day out, how to cut through and have those meaningful connections with the people that matter most to us, our customers, and just as importantly, our potential customers. And I'm not going to stand here for the next however long, 40 minutes or so, and say, get those notebooks out, write this down. Step 1, do this. Step 2, no, sorry. I'm not going to do that because A, it would be too easy, and 2, it would assume that I know as much about your businesses and your challenges as you do, which obviously is not the case. So what I would love to do, if you'll allow me, is to share some ideas, some examples, philosophies even, of organizations that I've seen who have understood where we are today and perhaps where we're going tomorrow. And the examples that I want to share with you are going to be from huge global brands that I know you've all heard of, as well as some examples from 1- and 2-person startups that I am sure that none of you have heard of, and that's okay. In fact, I would argue that the lessons we learn from those small companies are even more valuable because they don't have any money. They've got to be creative, they've got to be agile. Business, in its most fundamental definition, has changed beyond all recognition in a very, very short period of time. What we took as gospel for decades, if not centuries, is suddenly, almost overnight, irrelevant. And it is exhausting to try and keep up with that change, try and stay ahead of the curve. I would argue that maybe we don't have to. There's value in what we have always done. We just need to contextualize it with what we know about today and what we think we know about tomorrow. I mean, who here is in marketing? Whose job is in marketing? Put your hands up. Don't be afraid. This is a safe space. Okay, good. Few of you. I'm a career marketer. Spent my whole life in that world. Marketing friends, I'm going to tell everybody our dirty little secret. Marketing is the easiest job in the world. At least it was until we ruined it with the internet. Back in the olden days, like 15 years ago, we would put up our billboard or our TV ad or our radio ad, and we would say, buy our product, use our service, vote for our politician, whatever the message might be. And there's no way for a customer to interact with that. You can't ask a billboard a question. I mean, you can, but you're not going to get an answer. It was completely one way. There was no conversation to be had. And marketers, being the exploitative bunch of people that we are, quickly figured out that we could say basically whatever we wanted and there was zero consequences, to the point where it got ridiculous. These are all real ads from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Basically, smoke cigarettes and you'll get healthier. We don't even let cigarette companies advertise anymore in a lot of countries. If we tried something like this, we would destroy them. We would put them out of business in about 27 hours. You mean a woman can open it? That's a product feature, apparently. So the next time you roll out a new version of what you create or what you do, you can put out an ad that says, it's faster than the competition, it's easier to implement, and women can use it. Try that. I dare you. I have this next one framed in my office at home because I think it shows how far we've come in this evolution. I also think it shows how far we've come as a species. Blow in her face and she'll follow you anywhere. Ladies, is that true? They are no longer in business. Now, you are all smart people. Obviously, you're in this room. You are part of a growing cohort of people that traditional advertising just doesn't work on. It just bounces right off of us because we know what the advertiser is trying to get us to feel or to do, and we ignore it. Now, modern marketers like me and some of you, my brothers and sisters in the room, we figured out that if there's a group of people we really want to talk to, but we don't have access to them, we can give the message to somebody that does have access to them, that has influence over them, and they can hand the message to them, and we came up with the idea of the influencer. Amazing, great job. We didn't come up with that. We've been doing that for over 100 years. So if you don't believe the message coming from a brand, then you will believe it coming from legendary American comedian Bob Hope in, maybe the creepiest picture I've ever seen. And if Bob says smoke Chesterfield cigarettes, then you will smoke Chesterfield cigarettes. Now, again, you're all smart, attractive people. You know exactly what's going on here. Bob Hope might not smoke Chesterfields. He might not even smoke at all. But they drove a truck full of money to his house, and that was enough for him to overlook that minor detail. So if you don't believe Bob Hope, then you will believe your doctor. And if your doctor tells little Timmy there to smoke Camel cigarettes, little Timmy will grow up smoking Camel cigarettes. No one's ever sure if they're supposed to laugh at that. It's fine. Timmy's been dead for a long time. But the reason we can laugh at that is we have come so far in this evolution between customer and brand that not only is that type of advertising obviously highly offensive, not just in content but in mechanic, it's highly ineffective as well. That doesn't just happen for no reason. Fundamentally, that relationship between brand and consumer changed forever. Customers will no longer tolerate being abused by brands, just leveraged only for profit and represented by a single line on a balance sheet. No, they've taken control back in this relationship over a very short period of time. It sounds all violent and scary, but it's actually a good thing for everybody involved. Let's look at a little theory quickly. Stay with me. We'll get back to the funny pictures in a minute, but it's worth contextualizing our conversation before we move on. In the olden days, we used this model. I'm sure you've seen a version of it. It's been there since the dawn of humanity. The funnel method, where we used to, when we needed to buy something, we would take lots of brands and we would slowly and methodically narrow them down until we got to the least crap, I guess is the way. It's a cynical way of looking at it, but it is true. And so we would take those down and we would make our decision. And we marketed accordingly. As a result, we would have the right message at the right place at the right time. So big out-of-home campaign to tell the world that we exist, side-by-side comparison in industry journals to elevate ourselves above the competition, and then price-based promotion. Buy one, get one free, 10% off, to nudge the consumer over the line when they were hesitating right at the point of purchase. One of the many flaws of that model is that the relationship I have with the brand is very, very limited. It's based on use and service. So the relationship I have with my lawnmower, if I can have one, is when I'm using it and when it inevitably breaks and I have to take it back to the retailer or the manufacturer to be repaired or replaced. That's it. That's the extent of the relationship. Not much to build on there. And one of those points is a negative. It's based on failure. So I'm already having to work to come back up to neutral, to zero. Thankfully, that model is dead or dying at the very least, because consumers make a choice of what they're going to buy long before they ever go into the shop, click buy, pick up the phone, whatever we want them to do. And so the model has had to change. You may have seen something like this before, but I'm a big fan of it because it's mine. But you can see by definition, it's a circle. Therefore, it's exponentially more efficient. There are far more points of engagement. And I think most importantly, the process, the relationship, whatever, doesn't end at purchase. It carries on afterwards, which is so important for building something lasting, right? As a result, we don't systematically narrow down our choices anymore. Instead, we'll take brands in and out of contention over a much, much longer evaluation period. And post-purchase, and this I probably think, this is for me the most important thing, that relationship with the brand becomes open-ended. We now have the platforms to engage with those brands and ask questions and share joys and frustrations post-purchase. We also have the platforms to share our opinion with people who we know and love on our social graphs, and people who we will never meet and have nothing in common on the greater social web, which is kind of a mixed blessing if you ask me. We've also had to change that moment where purchase, the decision to purchase, is influenced. And this is actually another great thing. In the old model, we would spend a lot of time and money on the consideration phase. So letting people know that we even exist. Big, expensive, difficult to track advertising campaigns. And then price-based promotion, effectively bribing the customer to buy something they really should be buying because it's good. Now, the people and brands that have figured this new model out realize that if you invest in the evaluation phase, taking the customer by the hand and leading them through that research process, giving them everything they'll need to feel confident they're making the right choice, even if it means exposing them to your competitor, which is a risk, I appreciate, but it also builds transparency and trust. Those are two things you cannot buy. And then post-purchase on the advocacy phase. Give me a reason to shout about you, to tell my friends, to recommend. Because that word of mouth recommendation is priceless. You can't synthesize it, you can't influence it, you can't buy it. So give me reasons and platforms to do it on your behalf. Now, there comes a point, ideally, when a consumer's bond with a brand is so strong, they would never consider going anywhere else but you. I'll give you, so who are my Apple people in the room? Who are like the Apple people? Okay, quite a few of you. Okay, Apple people, I'm just talking to you. Everybody else, you take 5. Apple people, when your beloved iPhone or iPad or MacBook Pro or whatever dies, and you have gone through your week of mourning, or you've buried it in the back garden, or whatever you need to do to be okay, are you going to go to the LG store and the HP store and the Dell store and go, that one's got 256, that one's 128 and it's a lot? No, of course you're not. Of course you're not. You're going to march down to the nearest Apple store, drop 2,000 euros on a new MacBook Pro, walk out and go, what the hell just happened? I don't even remember any of this happening. I mean, yet I'm holding a 2,000 euro laptop. We are so built into this cycle that we do it without consideration. Now, obviously, Apple have built that on nearly flawless physical product and service, nearly flawless customer and retail experience, and they've invested and optimized every single point on this diagram. But what they've entered into, or we as Apple dorks, is this idea of a loyalty loop. And that's ultimately what we are aiming for with everything we do to create that bond. The myth that we're busting, really, is that in 2025, building a product or service is enough. It is not enough. There are so many more ingredients necessary to creating something compelling and good that draws me back time and time again because I want to, not because you've incentivized me to. And for me, the single most powerful ingredient is emotion. Stay with me. I'm not some hippie motivational speaker here. There's some science that's worth exploring here. I have spent most of my career studying loyalty. I'm obsessed with it. I'm nowhere near understanding it. It's an incredibly complicated subject. But the one certainty that I have drawn is that you cannot have loyalty to anything, a brand, a person, a dog, whatever, without feeling something. Did anybody watch Mad Men when it was on? Yeah, quite a few. So it's basically like porn for marketing people. There's this wonderful throwaway line early on in that show. You feeling something, that's what sells. Translation for our world is how I feel when I take the lid off the box and hold the physical version of the promise that you've made me with all of your advertising and communication. That's what gets me coming back. How I feel when I step off the street and into your shop for the first time, or the 100th time. That's what gets me coming back. How I feel when I'm angry, you failed me, and I call you up, or I message you on Twitter. How I feel at the end of that conversation. That's what gets me coming back, or not, as the case may be. There's a Canadian neuroscientist called Dr. Donald Calm, whose work I'm doing a great disservice by compressing into this slide. But about 30 years ago, he wrote an incredibly boring book. But in that book was this nugget of gold. He was the one that figured out that if we want someone to do something, to perform an action, it's far more efficient to appeal, stimulate the emotional side of who we are, rather than the reasonable or rational side of who we are. Why? Well, he figured out that reason leads to conclusion. 1 + 1 = 2. The specifications of this product will suit my needs and solve my problem, but it won't get me to do anything. To stop looking through the shop window and actually go in, pick up the phone, click buy, sign the contract, whatever it is we want them to do. To get them to actually do that, he realized that we have to stimulate them emotionally. Why? Because emotion leads to action. He was the one that figured out that our emotions are regulated by the limbic system in the brain, part of our brain. Interesting in and of itself. He was also the person that figured out our decision, our subconscious instinct to act, is also regulated by the limbic system. So these are not just conceptually tied together, they're physiologically tied together, which means we can't ignore it. You're all looking at me like I'm a psychopath.